I Can Be Outside in the Dark is the 20th episode of the first season of Two and a Half Men, and there will be spoilers from now as I discuss various aspects of this episode. It's directed by Gary Halvorson, and I remember this one really, really well. Something I've mentioned in my recent discussions is that I used to binge watch Two and a Half Men every day in around about 2009, 2010, and this episode just came flooding back to me, and even though I could recall it, I still really thoroughly enjoyed it. It starts off with Judith dropping Jake off, and I feel like Judith is very funny in the whole episode, but in particular, this opening scene, I just think her lines were so well written and very well delivered, of course. Really, really found her very funny. Jake's in his room playing Smoke on the Water, and all I will say is that you will have Smoke on the Water in your head for a very long time after watching this. It was also very nostalgic for me in another way, because when I was a tiny bit older than Jake, I got an electric guitar, and Smoke on the Water was all I could play. So very nostalgic for me. But he's not in a very good mood, and people keep asking him what's wrong, and he says that what's bothering him is people asking him what's bothering him. And I feel it. I feel that truth, because I know people ask what's wrong out of kindness most of the time, but it's so irritating when people constantly ask you what's wrong. I hate being asked how I am. I don't know why, but I completely get what Jake's going on about. And nobody can get to the bottom of it. Berta suggests he's constipated, which obviously brought some comedy. Berta's in this a decent amount of time. I wish she'd been in it maybe a tiny bit more, but what she brought to it was fantastic, and I'll come back to her later on. Alan is getting very frustrated that he can't work out what's wrong with his son, and Evelyn comes over, and Evelyn's great. Again, she's not in it very much either, but the scene that she's in I thought was very well done, very funny. Definitely could see how Jake was uncomfortable there, and ultimately they decide to take him to therapy. And here we get Dr. Linda Friedman, played by Jane Lynch. And I don't want to say too much about the character because I don't want to spoil future episodes, but I will say that this is a pretty great introduction to the character. I thought Lynch gave a really, really great performance, and Jake's responses to her questions were very amusing as well. But again, doesn't seem like we're getting to the bottom of what's wrong with him. What could possibly be wrong? Well, we don't need to ask any more questions, because the following morning he skips through the living room, happy as anything, with a sing-song voice, and Berta reveals that she gave him some prune juice the night before. And it was the case. He was constipated, and now he's not. And obviously that's funny, but I also like the fact that there wasn't anything actually bothering him, anything serious, nothing that would cause him lifelong problems, as Judith and Alan had begun to fear. So it was both funny and also a bit of a relief, as I'm sure it was for Jake. And then we have an amazing scene at the end where they're having their jam session with Charlie on piano, Jake on his guitar, and Alan on the tambourine. And when Jake looks at Alan and prompts Alan to tap the tambourine, it was fantastic. Very, very funny, very entertaining way to end the end of the episode, tying everything together with Jake, in Charlie's words, being unplugged. Really thoroughly enjoyed this episode. I don't know if I'd say it's one of my favourites from season 1, but certainly Hey, I Can Be Outside in the Dark is a very well written, very funny episode, and one I'm sure I'll always enjoy.